You ever wake up thinking your life is finally turning a corner? Then by sundown, you're standing on your own porch, surrounded by more federal agents than cattle, asking yourself if you've been set up, cursed, or just plain stupid. Yeah, that happened. Auctioneer's gavel dropped at $127,000 for 640 acres of Montana grassland, and for a second there, I thought I'd beat the system, snagged a ranch, a real one, the kind of land my granddad used to talk about like it was the promised land. A man isn't free until he owns his own dirt, he used to say, usually with a mouthful of Copenhagen. Well, I was about to learn the fine print on that freedom. 3 hours after the auction, with the smell of new keys and big dreams in my hand, my life turned into a damn episode of Narcos. Helicopters, black SUVs, federal agents jumping out with rifles, body armor catching the last gold of the afternoon sun. When the lead agent came up the steps and delivered those 6 little words, the previous owner was a criminal mastermind, I knew I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. Let me back up a sec so you know how a fool's hope starts. That morning, I was in Riverside County Courthouse, catalog in my lap, a red circle around Lot 47, Silver Creek Ranch. Just saying the name made me feel like I was halfway home. Around me, 40 people were shuffling, whispering about foreclosures and debts, but I had tunnel vision. 15 years in the Marines, 3 tours, a shoulder that only lifts a hammer on good days, and $180,000 in disability that felt like both my life's work and my last shot. My best friend since childhood, Fletcher Boone, had tipped me off. He's a real estate lawyer now, the kind who always seems to know when opportunity is circling the drain. Cal, he'd said over beers, the bank wants it gone fast. Previous owner, complicated story. Fletcher looked a little too nervous, wouldn't quite meet my eye, but hope is a stubborn disease. The bidding kicked off at 90 grand. Paddle after paddle went up, one from a woman up front, then a guy in a suit with an accent that put me on edge like he was bidding on the last seat off a sinking ship. At $122,000, I raised mine, felt the weight of commitment thump down in my chest. The guy with the cold eyes and the suit pushed to $125,000, stared at me like I just signed my own death warrant, then, get this, stood up and walked out. Not another bid. Just silence. Even the auctioneer hesitated, like he was waiting for the catch. I signed, shook the bank guy's hand, took the keys, and tried to act like my stomach wasn't doing barrel rolls. Courthouse clerk smiled at me like I'd won something. You know that look people give when they're glad it's you and not them? That afternoon I drove out, 2 miles of rutted dirt road, through pine and meadow, to a gate so rusted the sign looked more like driftwood than anything welcoming. But I swear, that land, rolling hills, a creek winding along the west, the kind of sky that makes you believe in second chances. It looked like everything my granddad promised. Then my carpenter's eyes started seeing what my marine instincts were already feeling. Something was off. 30 head of cattle, starving, skin and bone in the east pasture. No one caring for them. The grain storage building stank so bad when I cracked it open, I nearly lost my lunch. Chemical, rotten, not even close to grain. Then cameras, high-end ones, thousands of dollars each, bolted to collapsing barns and sagging porches like diamonds stuck in mud. And the concrete slab, 20 by 30 feet, poured fresh, trowel marks still visible, not a foundation or driveway, just covering dirt for no reason. I'd spent years building houses, and nothing about that made sense. It was as if someone was hiding something, but didn't want it to look like they were hiding something. That night, after walking the place, I spread my sleeping bag on the living room floor. No furniture, no power, just a bunch of echoing, dusty rooms. I held my old Sig Sauer under the blanket, just in case. Marines don't sleep easy, you know. At 7:03 the next morning, I learned the real price of buying someone else's secret. Helicopters beating the dawn, SUVs kicking up enough dust to blot out the sunrise. Feds everywhere like I'd stepped on the world's biggest anthill. Agent Hale, FBI, met me on the porch. Cold, competent, eyes like they'd seen too many crime scenes to be surprised anymore. She dropped the hammer. Federal investigation, RICO warrant, previous owner disappeared. Not a she, Katerina Volkov. Suddenly, the real estate deal of the century started feeling like a setup. They wanted to know how I heard about the ranch. I told them about Fletcher, watched as they scribbled notes, and made plans to call him in. That's when the twist hit. I told them about the cameras, the slab, the cattle. Hale didn't flinch. She'd already run my background, probably knew more about me than I did. "You're a Marine? Demolition and construction?" she asked. She barked orders, and within minutes ATF had the grain building open. The smell doubled down. Agents cursing, shining flashlights, finding not grain but industrial fans, PVC piping, a workbench stacked with unmarked tools, and, center stage, a steel trapdoor with a bank vault keypad. Turns out my ranch was a front. Volkov had run an industrial money laundering network out of Silver Creek for years. Millions in dirty cash washed clean through livestock businesses that never made a dime. The bunker was real, massive, cold as a tomb, lined with servers, filing cabinets, hard drives, Cyrillic letters everywhere. In a flash, my $127,000 was evidence, not equity. But I stood my ground, wanted to see what I'd paid for, right down to the last nightmare under that concrete. Agents dragged out a safe, passports, stacks of cash, and, more important, 6 encrypted hard drives. Cybercrime gold. Hale leveled with me. "We need to keep this as an active crime scene. 6 to 8 months. No, you can't stay. No, you can't build your dream. Not yet. My fresh star was locked up tight, maybe forever." They promised to try and get me compensation. Promises feel empty when you're broke. Then the real danger came creeping, literally. Agents caught 3 armed men trying to breach the north fence, found a phone with a single message, "Retrieve the drives." Katerina's orders. $50,000. That cold pit in my stomach grew. She wasn't just running, she was fighting to protect what was hidden here. Hale ramped up security, 24/7 perimeter, everyone on edge. But I wasn't leaving. This was my land, and I'd be damned if I let someone scare me off it. By the 3rd day, the place looked like a war zone. FBI, ATF, DA, marshals, agents running 12-hour shifts, command trailers humming, forensics teams everywhere. Cyber folks cracked 2 drives. The ranch was command and control for a $280 million operation, linked to Russian mobs and Mexican cartels, with satellite properties in 3 other states. Why let it go to auction? Because she had insiders, knew the feds were closing in, and needed a patsy, someone like me, to take ownership and slow down the heat. My lawyer, Fletcher, got pulled in. Turns out he'd been threatened by Volkov to find a clean buyer. Sold me out to save his daughter. Some betrayals sting deeper because you get why they did it. Then the phone rang, a cold, accented voice, Katerina herself. She offered me double my money for the items on the ranch. I refused. She gave me 48 hours, then promised to take what she wanted by force. I told Hale, and the war room snapped into place. Tactical maps, sniper posts, motion sensors, air support on standby. We turned the place into a fortress, baited the trap, and waited. The plan? Let them come. Let them try. Midnight, full alert. I was the decoy, sipping coffee on the porch while agents moved like ghosts. At 3:17 a.m., the north sensors tripped. 6 figures, moving military style through the trees. Dmitry Volkov, her brother, at the lead. They crept right into our funnel, 30 feet of exposed ground. Right then, a shot cracked from the ridge. One of ours went down. Sniper. Chaos. I broke protocol. Couldn't help myself. I knew that land. I flanked the sniper with 2 agents, caught him in a crossfire. He tried to kill us. Whitlock, one of the agents, put him down with a clean shot. The sniper, ex-military, bled out a warning. "You should have taken the offer." Down at the ranch, the rest of the team cleaned up. For trapped in the bunker, 2 more surrendered. 7 arrests. No dead feds. A week later in federal court, I watched them all shuffled in orange jumpsuits. Dmitry, the sniper, the hired guns. Agent Hale nodded to me as the prosecutor laid out their crimes. Sentences stacked up, 65 years, 35, and so on. 3 days later, the feds caught Katerina in Belize, grabbed her on a dock, just before she could skip the country. Her face was all over the news. Queen Pin brought down by her own greed, her own hubris. I got to give a statement. Stood up and told the judge, all I wanted was a piece of land. Your sister tried to turn my dream into a crime scene, but justice won. The judge called me an example of citizenship, but honestly, it felt more like exhaustion than victory. 6 months later, the ranch was really mine. Title cleared, all liens gone. The government cut me a check for 75 grand for my trouble. I bought cattle, built a new shop, started selling custom furniture. Fletcher served his probation, came by one afternoon, looked older, tried to patch things up. I told him trust takes time. Maybe we get there. Maybe not. Now, sometimes I sit on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the sun set over my own land. No agents, no helicopters, no ghosts, just peace hard-earned and honest. That's the thing about justice. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's quiet, but you know it when you feel it. I came to Montana looking for freedom, and instead found a war, but I fought for it. And now, for the first time in a long time, I can finally breathe. So let me ask you, what would you do if your dream came wrapped in someone else's nightmare? Would you run, or would you stand and fight for what's yours? Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and tell me, what does justice mean to you? Because out here, in the real world, the line between right and wrong is a whole lot messier than the stories ever let on.